There's only really one subject to talk about today, and that's Andrew. And I think we all know the one I'm talking about. That's ordinary member of the public, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the Andrew formerly known as Prince. And in this hour, I'm asking if the King's decision to strip him of his HRH title marks the end of Andrew's public fall from grace, or are there further debts for this ordinary member of the public to sink to, more opprobrium to come his way? Now, 2 weeks back, when I was last here, there were plenty of messages from you guys saying that Andrew choosing not to use his titles and honours wasn't enough. He needed to be stripped of him. Well, now you and me have got what we wanted. And I have to ask if a desire to see Andrew fall further is a sign there's something wrong with us. OK? Does our thirst for vengeance, for retribution, for justice maybe, somehow make us maybe no better than him? 0345 6060 973, the number if you want to get in early. I'll be honest, I'm only asking this because Matthew Parris, a very well-paid columnist at The Times, argued this week that while Andrew is most certainly a rat, the kicking he's receiving, getting ugly. I'm quoting Parris directly. Is there no end to these media and social media punishment beatings, he pleaded in the rag? Both legs are broken, the ribs are kicked in and the teeth are on the tarmac, yet still it goes on. I'm beginning to wonder whether this apparent national obsession with keeping up an assault on a bad man whose sins have been revealed and who has lost everything and serves him bloody well right is getting a bit relentless. It calls to mind the cat who brings in a half-dead mouse to torture it on the lounge carpet. You don't have to be particularly pro-mouse to feel that the torment has been going on for too long. Among the British population, there are rather a lot of men who have done disgraceful things, but they are not famous. Nobody has heard of them. So we find an example with royal blood. We watch him writhe and enjoy his lip-smacking reminder that, thank the Lord, we're better than that. I do find something disgusting in the spectacle. So wrote Matthew Parris. Has he got a point? Has he got a few? Perhaps, although the fact he admitted any reference to any of the reasons why Andrew was having his legs broken, his legs kicked in, his teeth on the tarmac, also speaks volumes, does it not? Lest we forget, Andrew denies having a relationship with Virginia Giuffre, the woman who said back in 2014 originally that she'd been sex trafficked to Andrew by the convicted sex offenders Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Andrew vehemently denied her claims. Indeed, he denies ever meeting Giuffre, but his late mother, the Queen, still apparently gave this poor woman £12 million as part of an out-of-court settlement. Giuffre went on to take her own life on the 25th of April this year, aged just 41. Her posthumous memoir, published last month, providing still more reasons for the royal family to feel discomfort over Andrew's behaviour. Perhaps it was the book that brought things to a head this week, who knows? Equally, it could be Andrew's poor memory of when he finally broke off his friendship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, or indeed his choice of dish at Woking Pizza Express, a sloppy Giuseppe perhaps, I don't know. For Matthew Parris, and doubtless some of you listening, seeing Andrew stripped of his titles, removed as a patron of charities, is punishment enough, and anyone who demands more is a vengeful so-and-so. Well, I guess that means I'm a vengeful so-and-so. Yes, Andrew's been booted out of the 30-room mansion known as the Royal Lodge, but he's expected to live on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, paid for by the King. He's expected to be given more than £500,000 to help with his move. That's more than the average price of a house in the UK. And it all sounds a lot nicer, if I'm absolutely honest, than where I'm currently lodging. Oops, there's me sounding all vengeful again. Is it vengeful to want justice? You know, the Trade Minister, Chris Bryant, has suggested Andrew should go to the US to answer questions about the crimes of the late paedophile Epstein, if asked. Giuffre's family said in a statement last night that she'd never stop fighting for accountability. Today, they said an ordinary American girl from an ordinary American family brought down a British prince with her truth and extraordinary courage. Now, the King is understood to have opted to abolish Andrew's dukedom using his powers of royal prerogative rather than waste parliamentary time, so that's why it's no longer being done through an act of Parliament. But I'm just really interested in the Matthew Parris line or argument that we, the public, need to back off a bit lest we somehow shame ourselves with our thirst for vengeance, with our thirst for retribution. I suspect, as I said, you may consider me vengeful, but I think there's still more for Andrew to answer, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0345 6060 973 is the number. Now, I'm joined first by two lofty journalists, really. In a moment, I'll catch up with Sean O'Grady, Associate Editor at The Independent. But I'm joined first by Gordon Rayner, Associate Editor of The Daily Telegraph, who wrote this week that Andrew believed the worst was over and the King had other ideas. That was back in October, and I think one on Friday, what life will be like for Andrew as a commoner. Good morning to you, Gordon.
Morning.
Is it vengeful? Does it somehow disgrace us as a country to want more, to see Andrew fall further?
Well, I don't know to what extent the public does want to see further punishment for him. I think there's been huge support for what the King has done. I found the clip of the Question Time audience on Thursday clapping loudly when the recording was stopped to tell them the news. I thought that was very telling. And I think, I think the King would have been fairly spooked by a poll that was out a few days ago that suggested that support for the monarchy as an institution had fallen to 46%. I don't think it's ever really dipped below around 60% before. We're not a country that is by and large sort of Republican-minded. And I think that, you have to remember that the monarchy exists by consent. If the British public decides it doesn't want a monarchy anymore, then we won't have one. It doesn't have a divine right to exist. So I think the action that the King has taken was important. And I think we'll only know in the weeks and months to come whether the public feels that that's enough or whether they think there should be more.
I also watched Question Time, and one of the things I was struck by, aside from that spontaneous applause from the audience, was a succession of comments from the studio audience that it was too little too late from the King, which sort of adds fuel to the fire that the public aren't satisfied by what has been done to date.
Yeah, I think part of the problem for Buckingham Palace has been that they can't move at the same speed that the media and the public moves once they decide that something needs to happen, without sort of getting bogged down in detail. There is obviously a lot of legal and constitutional technicalities involved in both taking away his titles and also booting him out of Royal Lodge. They had to find somewhere else for him to live for a start. So they couldn't just do that overnight.
But with £500,000 of financial assistance, more than £500,000, some papers are saying, 585 grand, more than the average cost of a home. I mean, it's hardly a punishment, is it?
Well, that's a very fair point, but I think that what you have to realise with Andrew is that his entire existence is all about status. He has spent his whole life living this, not only living a very privileged life, but believing that he is somehow different from the rest of us. He's a very arrogant man. He is a man who never apologises for anything. He doesn't really understand what he's done wrong, I don't think. So the very fact that he's now going to be living effectively in exile, that he can't call himself prince anymore, that he's not going to have people sort of fawning over him and, picking up his litter, as it were, that is an enormous punishment, and the money is slightly by the by.
Interesting points. Appreciate you joining us as well this morning. Thank you, Gordon. Gordon Rayner there from the Daily Telegraph. Let's bring in Sean O'Grady now, Associate Editor of The Independent, who wrote in The Independent, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor hasn't reached rock bottom yet. That was on Friday. Morning, Sean. Are you guilty of an extreme desire for vengeance? Are you somehow besmirching your own reputation with this desire to see Andrew fall further?
Well, I mean, I hope not, but it's hard to feel it's hard to feel sorry for him.
Yes.
Most of us get by without people standing up when we walk into a room, or calling us sir on a routine basis, or dressing up in fancy dress from the 14th century and parading before people at Windsor Castle and all the rest of it. We get by, and he's going to have a really nice house. I bet his house is nicer than mine.
Likewise.
I don't know about you, Matthew.
Likewise. Likewise.
But more seriously, I think that there is a sort of streak of cruelty in the British public, which is often on show in all sorts of cases where people get into trouble, to put it mildly. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter. That's what public opinion is. And if that's what public opinion is, Even Matthew Paris isn't really going to change it, I'm afraid, although his argument's perfectly valid. And that's what the public expects. And as you say, I think the polling shows that. I think that as the House of Windsor, which has survived longer than I think almost any of the other crowned heads of Europe, they're absolutely ruthless in looking after the institution. They got rid of the king in 1936. We had Harry and Mexit, all sorts of things. They got through all the divorces by being absolutely ruthless and putting the institution first, which means public opinion. So they just have to do what the public wants to do, even if the public is feeling vindictive, which they may be.
I often wonder that the idea of ruling by consent, and it's very easy. It's very easy to say, but I'll be absolutely honest, Sean. I do wonder sometimes whether they have that consent. It's presumed consent.
Well, they do, because it would soon show up, as it did for all the emperors and kings and czars and stuff that have toppled across the continent of Europe. They do what the Prime Minister tells them to do at the end of the day. And Starmer and co will have had some input into this on behalf of the people. And on this point, Keir Starmer's probably right, if that's what he's been telling them.
Now, you wrote yesterday that the ordinary member of the public, Andrew Windsor, hasn't reached rock bottom yet. Where may his trials take him? Where could this story finally... When will it end?
Well, I don't know. I think that's the thing that... Well, one of the things that must prey on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as we must now call him, on his mind. In the first place, as everyone says, that you've got these Epstein files over in America. Nobody knows what's quite in those. But it's sort of feels hard to believe that's the end of the matter. There won't be any more people coming forward. There won't be any more requests for him to account for himself, even as a private citizen now. He's a public figure in those days. And getting requests from America to give evidence and that sort of thing, and maybe even talk to the British Parliament about what he saw, what he knew, and all the rest of it. And what he said in the Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, where it was 6 years ago, was obviously inadequate, to put it mildly. So he does have questions to answer. And the other thing is that it's in the Andrew Lowndes book and it's in the public domain, that he had these links with Chinese, quote, business contacts and that sort of thing, which was to do with his pitch at the palace. You see, Andrew really, not to feel sorry for him again, he lived in palaces up until now, but I mean, he didn't have much of his own money. I think that's common knowledge. And he had to find money. So he had this scheme called Pitch at the Palace, with this rather grand, genteel version of Dragon's Den. And he used to rake some money out of it. That's one of the ways he raised cash. And there was a Chinese version of it, believe it or not. And there was a chap called Yang Bo, I think, who was involved in it. And of course, like everyone who works in Chinese business, they have links with the Chinese Communist Party and the Politburo. And I think those links that he had with the Chinese are unfortunate, and they may lead to some more inquiries about what he was doing, because they were after agents of influence or whatever they call them, just picking up gossip, basically. But I mean, that's something that was unwise, as they say in palace circles.
You're quite right, Sean. So it's a multitudinous possibilities yet for Andrew. Sean O'Grady from The Independent, thank you.